This is the first genuine time where I've had so much energy. Sorry, I don't know why I'm shouting so loud. So yeah, welcome back to my channel, which for some reason is turning into a Sonic channel. Honestly, I love Sonic. It's one of my most favorite game franchises. And today we're going to be looking into the Sonic Frontiers 2 leaks. So if you could drop a subscribe and a like, that would be amazing. You don't have to, obviously. I'm just saying it because it helps my channel out. But yeah, I know other creators have made videos on these leaks in general, but I just wanted to kind of express my own ideas and thoughts about these leaks. And I have a very different twist to what Sega's not doing. Okay, so getting into these leaks. So this was on the 11th of July at 10 PM. I have an insider who has a lot of info on Sega's IPs and their current development status. I've been able to see footage of several in-depth Sega projects, and a Chow game. I will share what I currently know about the new open world Sonic since I'm also a fan. Now, first off, first thoughts, notice how they say open world Sonic? Obviously, we don't know about we don't know the credibility of this leaker, but we know that Sonic Frontiers, the original game, was leaked on 4chan. I don't understand how that happened. I don't understand, that doesn't make any sense. Notice how they say open world and not open zone. Now, I'm genuinely hoping that it's just one massive map. Anyway, let's go through these leaks. Let's go. Working title is Frontiers 2. Honestly, if they were to call it Frontiers 2, or call it like Frontiers New Dawn, or something like that, would be very cool. Because it would adapt things from the previous game, and then you'd be able to make a really cool trilogy. I mean, Sonic having a trilogy would be amazing. Because then eventually they could add more and more things and just build upon the foundations of what made the first game great, and then build on top and then build on top again for 3 amazing games. The game is developed by Morio Kishimoto, with virtually the entire team returning from Frontiers. Amazing, because the animations in Frontiers were amazing. The combat was amazing. The cyberspace I thought was quite fun. Obviously, I feel like there could have been a lot more diversity, but I heard that in development of Frontiers that it was really a second thought about cyberspace. Anyway, some new staff from previous Boost games are returning as game designers. That's very interesting. What I do hope though is that they have some of the team. I think it's the same team. I'm not entirely sure, but I hope they have some of the same team from Sonic X Shadow Generations, because that game, the shadow levels look so good. And not even just the shadow levels level design in general, but just the fact that they've been able to use the spectacle of these new animations and how flashy you can make all the characters look when they do their cool little boss fights. Game began conceptualization shortly after Frontiers release, and began full-scale development in October of 2023 after the last DLC was released. Now, I absolutely love that they've instantly gone, okay, we're going to make Frontiers 2, we're going to make it amazing, it's going to be perfect. I really like the fact that they're actually trying to full force this idea, and they're not going back to a different kind of genre. Now, I did hear in 2021 that Azuka was just going to completely say, okay, we're going to make all of the next 10 years of Sonic games like Frontiers, but obviously develop on them. Only on current gen consoles, PC and Switch 2, no legacy Switch release, which is very, 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 very good. Can we actually, in fact, even if the Switch 2 is the equivalent of an Xbox One or PS4, can we just not put it on the Switch 2? Please. I know Sega's not going to do that because they get a lot of sales on the Switch, but you're holding yourselves back so much on putting all of it on the Switch. And I don't care what the Switch fans say, because if we're literally holding back what a game could be just because of last gen hardware, then I don't really care. But obviously Sega's going to care because, it's Sonic sells the most on Switch, and it's just a whole lot of jargon. Cyberspace will be returning in some way, but will be following similar design philosophies to TFH, which is the Final Horizon. So, very, very, very cool. I think what they need to do is make the stages look more professional, like they did in Sonic X Shadow Generations. That game, the stages look professional. Frontiers is fun, but if you were to show someone Frontiers cyberspace gameplay at the Game Awards versus showing Sonic X Shadow Generations gameplay, there's a huge difference. The showcase of Sonic X Shadow, I'm not going to say Sonic X Shadow Generations all the time. The showcase of Shadow in Generations is so much more widely presented that people are actually going to far more find it impressive. But with Frontiers, game was very fun, but it just didn't look as impressive. And also, I can't lie, cyberspace was pretty bad before they added the spin dash. So obviously it's not going to be. So obviously we could see some amazing improvements. Even in Frontiers, what I like about that game is that you're able to. Now I know you can do this by boosting into a corner, and then Sonic will fly up in the air, and then you can do a bunch of tricks. But I like that design choice of how you can spin dash up a wall, or you can spin dash on a ledge, and then you'll be able to gain some crazy height from jump deceleration. Only one giant island. A lot of people that read that were like, oh my god, no, it's only one giant island. This is going to be great. The fact that they're making one map is really good. I like how there's going to be a lot of cohesion and familiarity. I don't think people realize how big Sonic Team's scale has pushed over the past couple years, and especially the fact that Sonic X Shadow Generations looks like a much higher budget game. So if they're pushing Sonic X Shadow Generations as such a much higher budget game, just imagine the pure scale of Frontiers 2. Footage from the open world suggests that they're attempting a less realistic art style. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, we want those Sonic environments. If I'm being totally honest, I loved so much. That's one of the main reasons Frontiers is one of my most favorite games. I love the realistic art style because it kind of follows the essence of Unleashed, and I know Unleashed wasn't entirely realistic. I honestly just think that pushing those graphics and especially utilizing Unreal Engine 5 specifically for Sonic works. I know a lot of people have said that Sonic doesn't work in those kind of realistic environments, but honestly I think he works perfectly. The only reason people said that he doesn't work is I think it's because of the way the level design was in the open zone and about how everything looked out of place. The environment the player was exploring was a lot like Angel Island Zone, and there were some subterranean areas. That's very cool. I like that. I really hope that they include platforming that's actually integrated into the actual buildings, and like, it's kind of like how they've done the open world in Shadow Generations, like how everything's connected. I really hope that they stick with that, and they must fix the pop-in. I think they're going into Unreal Engine 5, so I think that won't really be an issue, since I'm pretty sure Hedgehog Engine 2 is quite an old engine. Yeah, it's pretty old. It's from 2016. Yeah, 2016, 2015, because even though people are going to say Forces came out in 2017, the development was 2015, so the development was like 2015, 2016, so it's pretty much a lot older. There are NPCs which look like villagers from what I saw. Other areas were filled with enemies which could attack said villagers. Very, very cool. I love the idea of NPCs. I mean, we've seen NPCs in previous Sonic games like Sonic Unleashed, but the idea that we're going to be able to do things for NPCs and maybe do like some quests, or, you know, have like some sort of stake would be really cool. I'd love the idea of making it so you would be able to like, so for example, if you're in Spider-Man 2, for example, and like you're swinging around the city and then like someone's in need, and then you have to go and like either make a choice to go and protect them, or you can go and like continue with the main story. It just depends on your preferences. Every inhabited area had some level of platforming. Very, very cool. Like that. You need to keep the platforming because that's central to Sonic. But what I hope that they definitely do, they must include signature Sonic things in the world. Like, they need to include like rocks that you can like spin dash into, and then you can like, kind of like in the classic games, how like you can go inside of a tunnel. Tunnels is something you need to add. Tunnels, waterfalls, and I know waterfalls are in Frontiers, but they're not really utilized. They're sort of there for the spectacle. Like having the ability, like kind of like in Generations, to go inside of a waterfall and then just like then boost through it would be amazing. And especially just boosting on water is something we just have to see. Combat looks virtually unchanged from Frontiers. Love that. Frontiers' combat is perfect. I don't care what anyone says about it. It's literally the most perfect thing ever. Because what I really like about Frontiers' combat is you can play Frontiers combat and it's very, very good. I just think they need to add more moves. The reason it's so good is because professional players can play the game and be like, okay, yeah, I'm doing amazing. Look at all these cool moves. But then if you were to give the game to a child, for example, it's very easy. And especially with the addition of auto combos, all the buttons aren't very like difficult to understand. And we're not saying that children are dumb in the sense that they can't play video games, but it's just good because it adds that level of accessibility whilst making the game look really flashy, and also combat just being very fun in general. You definitely need to up the level of difficulty in the enemies, and that doesn't just mean adding like different levels of speed, which they did in the Final Horizon. I don't think that was the best way of going about it. I mean, they didn't have enough development time to like make new moves for the enemies or make them like crazy powerful, but honestly, and to be honest, just making them faster was probably the best thing that they could do. So I don't really have any complaints with the Final Horizon, but if they do that in Frontiers 2, gonna be a little bit disappointing. But it's not gonna be the end of the world because I love the Frontiers combat in general. It's literally the best thing about Frontiers. Boost like Frontiers, but it is not the main way to go fast. It is only really useful at slower speeds to launch you forwards. Conserving momentum is key. Love the idea that they're going into the spectacle of momentum. I think boost is very good, but they should add it in increments, so where like you can only boost for about 3 seconds, and then you keep the speed and you got to maintain your boost speed. That would be really cool, because then you'd be actually challenging players whilst making it so you can still have some of Sonic's signature moves. Because getting rid of Sonic's signature moves wouldn't actually make the series very cohesive. I don't know, I just feel like something would be missing. I think just slapping every single thing that they've put, even the wisps. I don't care what people say. Look, I don't like the wisps either, but even adding them as DLC is like on top of the main game would be just crazy. Because like having a complete Sonic definitive experience, like the Wispons, the wisps, the Chow. I don't know why I'm holding a pen, but pretty much just everything that they've ever put in Sonic, put in the main series. And obviously Ian Flynn's going to be writing it, the absolute legend himself, so that will never be a problem in terms of making it make sense. Looking at you, Pontac and Graph. There is a boost. Game has been in full development for less than a year. Very, very good. So game has been in full development for less than a year, so not a lot is finished, and what is primitive. It is jank, but not in the same way as Frontiers. Very early footage though. Now, I'm not saying this leak is true, but it's actually quite good to look at considering that Frontiers was leaked and everything on 4chan. But I have a lot of hope for this game because A, the bigger budget, B, the bigger team, and C, the fact that they're going to be using a lot of the stuff from Frontiers, so they already have quite a solid foundation. All they really need to do now is just expand on what they have and really just make Sonic perfect. And the reason I say Frontiers is my favorite Sonic game is because of the way Sonic controls. I love the innovation of using the spin dash in cyberspace, and I love the combat. Like Frontiers with the combat makes it incredibly addictive for me. But obviously it's not going to be everyone's favorite game. But it is mine, and I don't care what anyone says. Expect a late 2026 release, possibly 2027. That sounds incredibly believable, because Sonic Team are on a roll right now. I mean, they've got the new game coming out, they've got the movie coming out. Apparently there's supposed to be a Heroes remake coming out next year. A remake or remaster, I'm not entirely sure. But the fact that they're going like a game a year is just showing that Sonic Team are finally back on track. Well, this leak is very vague. And I know this leak is very vague, but just the ideas that are in this leak are very, very cool. But one thing that I was hoping that they would do for the next game was something like adding a... Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was believable because, like, obviously, it's very generic, so it's very safe to kind of say. Okay, so this is the next leak. It's anonymous, 5th of September, so it's a lot more recent. So, working title for this game is Sonic Frontiers 2, same game. Game has been in full development since a couple of months before the Final Horizon released. AAA game dev size, set on a floating island called Summit Spire. Very cool name, I like that. They're probably going to change it, but if that's what it's called, very cool. As you can imagine, it's related to Angel Island, but it's on top of another bigger grounded island. The main island floats via a digitized version of the Master Emerald. I think some people are thinking that this is going to be kind of like the same scale as like Kronos Island, but like adding Rhea Island on top of it. I don't believe that. I think it's going to be... I'm pretty sure that it's going to be about the same scale as if you put all 5 of the islands from Frontiers together and put them in one go, and even probably more than that. I mean, if you just think about it from like a pure scale perspective, if they're only doing one island, I like that they're going to be able to add a lot more detail into the island so they can perfect it. So rather than making 5 separate islands, they can make one island and just perfect every little corner of the map and like make it sure that there's no pop-in, make sure that the environment looks interesting, engaging, adding specific areas. And also another thing, they could probably make a sequel from this Summit Spire if they were to completely perfect this island, because they could just add another island on top of it, or like add something else, kind of like how they expand the map each time in New York and Spider-Man. Or even they could make a Shadow game based off of that island, but just put Shadow in it. Kind of like how they did Spider-Man with... Kind of like how they do Spider-Man and then they did Spider-Man Miles Morales. Would be a really cool kind of spin-off, and honestly just being able to play Shadow would be awesome. Movement is drastically different as well. Camera is closer to Sonic, but the further it goes as you gain speed, very dynamic but also very clunky. Really like that. I like how they're going to make it so the camera is a lot more fixed, because in Frontiers the camera was terrible, but I feel like for some more experienced players you could kind of control the camera, so I didn't really have a huge problem with it. But I feel like just like the first time I played Frontiers, it really annoyed me. So yeah, it's obviously going to be very dynamic, and to be honest, I originally was scared of the dynamic camera because of Frontiers, but I think ever since they've done Shadow Generations, I have a lot of confidence, because there was a particular time in Shadow Generations where the camera would pan into Shadow whenever he'd go on the rails in Kingdom Valley, and then it would pan out. So the fact, and also just in general, in all of the Shadow levels, the slower you went, the closer Shadow was to the camera, but the further you went, Shadow would kind of go away, which kind of gave you that illusion of speed, but it also was quite fast anyway. A good bit of the map is kind of like Green Forest, very cool, love Green Forest, hope they add the vines and like you're able to like swing and go and and like do some crazy tricks, or maybe even add like some special abilities that you can gain in each specific area of the island. There's a kingdom area and there's also an area that resembles Sky Sanctuary, but blue. There are portals underground that are presumably cyberspace. I know for a fact that cyberspace is in the game, and I'm guessing that this is it. Now what I'm hoping for cyberspace is they actually polish all of the levels. Like each level is 5 minutes long, it's predominantly 3D, and there is a lot more action scenes, kind of like how there is in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Making Sonic a lot more stylish would just make the whole spectacle look even good, even if they don't have complete time to finish all of the cyberspace levels, because making an open world game plus adding cyberspace levels would be very difficult, so I kind of understand where they're coming from. But heck, even if they were to spend an extra year of development time on Frontiers 2, I'd happily wait. I know a lot of people won't, but I would wait, because them perfecting a game would be amazing, like having like a full-on experience of just everything being perfect. Before I used to think like, okay, give them as much development time as possible, but now I'm a lot more confident in Frontiers 2 ability because of the way Frontiers turned out. Villages with live NPCs, as seen in the last leak. It's kind of like a Minecraft pillager raid where sometimes you have to save the village for a reward. I'm hoping it's not like Sonic 06, because that would be awful. No humans, which I'm kind of disappointed about, because I like the inclusion of humans in Sonic, because like it's kind of like, okay, we've got Mobians, and then we've got humans, and then we've got Sonic characters. I like the idea of like everything having kind of like a balance, because Sonic is set on Earth, so they need to keep that consistency of keeping the humans in the games, even just referencing them, even if they're not in the games themselves, because then it would just break the entire of the Sonic continuity, like, of the games. Psyloop is a returning feature, very cool. I thought Psyloop was really cool in the base game, but I thought it was quite lackluster in its ability to just be interesting, so if they're able to expand Psyloop in a couple of ways, I mean, the foundation of it was amazing, but I just really hope that they're able to just make it even more incredible. The gimmick of this game is the Surge ability, which is basically the boost but way faster and is used to gain crazy momentum. Now, maybe it's going to be a lot like those cyberspace, the Final Horizon challenges, where you got like those green energy pods, and then you'd maintain your momentum whilst going fast, and if you were to hit something, you would just lose all your speed. Doesn't last long, and it has to be charged up with rings, kind of like a regular boost. Now that's really cool. I like how they're making it not last long, so kind of like if you were to be driving a car, right, and then driving, and then you'd have to coast the car by like putting your foot off of the clutch. If you guys know about driving cars and stuff. For example, letting a car roll down a hill versus just holding on the accelerate, because then you actually have to use some of your skill to like maneuver the car, similar to kind of like Sonic. So I know that the director for Unleashed is returning this time just as a game designer, and some peeps from Colors/Gens are back in similar roles. Very cool. Very, very cool. Hope that's actually true this time. Okay, so the point what I wanted to discuss about was my hopes and dreams for the next Sonic Frontiers 2 game. And I know that this is not likely by any means, but I think so many people would be just flabbergasted if this was to happen. So imagine a game, right, where it's set in San Francisco or even New York City, and you had this ability to where you could switch between Sonic and Shadow, and it was an open world, and there was NPCs, and you could fight kind of like Shadow's Doom creatures, and like you could have like a Doom modified kind of New York City section, and then you could have like Sonic's more open grassy areas. So kind of like modify New York City, but make it so it still feels like a city, because especially with Frontiers graphics, I think they could make such an amazing, beautiful city. And the only reason this is probably not going to happen is because of the size of Sonic Team. I mean, it could happen if they were to really push everything, but kind of similar to the way Spider-Man 2 works, because imagine just like pressing down, and then you could hold the square button on your PS5 controller to switch over to Shadow, and then you'd see Shadow like fighting enemies, and then you could team up with Shadow, and then like Sonic and Shadow could have like dual combat, and then they could do like moves where they help each other. I mean, that would just be amazing. And you could even have like some abilities where you have to fly through hoops throughout the city, and you could like open your Doom wings, like kind of how Shadow's got his Doom powers from Shadow Generations, and you could just fly around the hoops, and then you could complete challenges. I mean, there's a lot that they could do with a city like open world, because they could just build upon it each game. And that's why I kind of lean into this kind of realistic setting, because I feel like Sonic can work if you kind of work with the way Frontiers looked, which then you could actually work with some continuity. And then having the idea that Sonic could like run on buildings and then jump off other buildings and then use his spin dash to like charge himself and then fly across New York City would just be amazing. And like even just having the ability to like climb like a tower and then just standing on top of it would just be so cool. And then you could even add like subtle references to the movies, like you could put like Tom the cop, and he could like live somewhere, and he's kind of like a reference, like he doesn't know who this version of Sonic is because it's Game Sonic, but it could be like a cool little reference to it. And then you could add like Eggman invasions, like Eggman's invading the city, and then like you have to kind of stop him. And then you could add like little like bosses around the map, like Perfect Chaos, like fighting Perfect Chaos as Super Sonic around New York City, or even like stupid petty little villains. Like, I'm sorry to disrespect Sonic Lost World fans, but like adding Zavok, and you have to fight Zavok in like a square. And you could even make it so Sonic and Shadow have different abilities, so Shadow is a lot more like powerful and Sonic's a lot more faster. And I know people have said that Sonic and Shadow are like equal speed, but giving them distinct abilities whilst making Sonic just a little bit slightly faster would make their gameplay switch a lot. So then you'd be like, okay, Shadow's just going to be destroying stuff, and then Sonic's just going to be like speeding around and has a lot more like quick abilities. And then what you could do for the final boss is like both of Sonic and Shadow go to the Ark, or they could go to like a ship in space, and that could be like the epic final boss. And then after the game, what you could do is make it so Sonic and Shadow have a lot more extra side content or missions. And that game, and this whole game idea, even if it took 5, 6, 7 years, would be so cool. I just want that. I want that so bad. Ever since I saw Frontiers' gameplay and its graphics, I was thinking, imagine this game, but set in a city. It would just be perfect. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of my ideas. I think that would be the most perfect Sonic game ever. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking that, okay, it's not set in Sonic's world, etc. But we've seen a lot of cities in Sonic games. I just think having one huge city map would be amazing. I mean, we're already kind of seeing that in the sneak peek of the Sonic Movie 3 DLC pack for Sonic X Shadow Generations. So just having that whole idea would just be amazing. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe and like if you liked the video. If you didn't like the video, please tell me in the comments what I can do better, because I'm always wanting to improve. And yeah, thanks for watching.